Harold Smith back with you, another in our series of videos talking about significant dates in history. And we're going to bring it down to a little more local level this time around. Once again, John Hark, Emergency Services Director for the City of Hannibal with us. And the date that I chose, because we're talking about a time period where there were a number of dates kind of depending on where you were and what area you were affected by. But the date that I focused in on was July 25th, 1993. Of course, the midst of the flood that came through, and that was the day that the levee at Sny Levee at East Hannibal broke. And John, you and I have talked before. You got a phone call that morning. It was a Sunday morning.
I did. I was sitting in my command post that morning. We were running a command post 18 hours a day, day in and day out. Actually went on for 54 days during that flood. But the phone rang. It was for me, and it was the people from over here in Illinois, right across the river, and
the Sny
drainage choke, yes. And they said, we believe lost our levee on the north end. Gave me a rough idea. Said, is there any way that you can assist us from your side at a high point to see if any of our volunteers or any of our people are out there that, we might need to get to or something? And I said, of course. And so I immediately grabbed some radios, portable radios, and so forth. At that time, we had the cell phones were the sack phones.
The bag phones,
yes.
Sure.
Grabbed one of them, and I headed to Riverview Park and went up to the statue overlook there and basically set up a forward field command post right there, coordinating as much stuff as I could with my people still back at our command post at City Hall, and had 2 or 3 others there with me, and we commenced using, every method we could, from binoculars to you name it, trying to scour as much of those bottoms over there. And it was amazing standing there watching that water as it come through those cornfields and in the effect that it had. And we wasn't sure about East Hannibal, and at that point in time there was no way to get there. So Roy, which happens to be my brother, as you know, was the fire chief, and I asked him and the captain of the Salvation Army at that time if they would walk across the train bridge for me and check to see if there was anybody in East Hannibal, if we needed to get them out of there and what we needed to do. And we do a little tongue-in-cheek thing about that every now and then, because him being a dedicated employee with the city of Hannibal and the fire chief and our captain with the Salvation Army at that time started to cross the train bridge. And as they got out to the middle of the train bridge, Roy stopped and he hollered at me on the radio and he said, can you tell me, or I should say Chief Hark, can you tell me why I'm out here on this train bridge with water lapping at the bottom of it and you're standing up there in Riverview Park? And I just simply said back to him, our mother only raised one fool.
There you go.
And, we had, that was, I guess, a little humor to a very serious situation.
It was indeed.
We lost, a lot of people lost homes, a lot of farm ground went underwater. And, the Mississippi should never, ever be sold short. It is a mighty river. I've watched it. I've worked it since 1970. I've worked every flood since then and worked some prior to that as a volunteer. And, it's just one of those things with the river. It's never over. It will be back. How true it is, I don't know. Harold, my dad always said that the American Indian had a favorite saying about the river, and it is that the river will leave a mark on the tree, but the river will be back to wash the mark free. And I've seen that happen.
Sure. Yes. And so many memories, man. That's one of those things for us in Northeast Missouri and Western Illinois, that particular day. But there's a whole series of memories. I mean, by that time, the West Quincy levee had broken. The only way you could get across the Mississippi was either go to well, not even Keokuk,
Nope.
Burlington or St. Louis at that point. And as far as the city of Hannibal is concerned, that was the second year of the flood wall in downtown?
No. The flood wall was actually finished and the gates set the first time in 93.
In 90, that was the first year of the flood wall.
Yes. I mean, you talk about, a baptism.
Oh.
I mean, that flood wall got it that year. It wasn't even quite complete. The cosmetics had not been done, and nobody knew. Will it hold? Really, we didn't know much about it except we had this big concrete wall and this big mound of dirt, and we had these big steel gates that shuts everything off. And so we grabbed the manuals and went to reading and looking, and we set floodgates and shut down gate wells, and we held the 93 flood.
Yeah, I know when it comes to the Illinois side, the Snai levee, the people that just battled that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. John Lear, who was the mayor in Hull at the time, later on when he would talk about that, even though they wound up losing the battle, the phrase that he always used was that we took a 28-foot levee and kept out a 32-foot river for a month.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just many heroes, many unsung heroes during that time.
There always is, and I had one. Well, I've been asked more than once, but at that particular time, I mean, I was asked a question by an individual and said, boy, I bet you're glad and relieved that the Snai broke. And I looked at him and I said, I would think under normal circumstances a person would probably say, yeah, I am. But I said, but from battling these floods as many years as I had, and I seen what 73 did to us in downtown Hannibal, I said, and knowing what them poor people went through 24/7, every day, all night, no, I'm not glad their levee broke. I wished we could all held. And, with me, when we get into a major disaster situation, the river or whatever it is, I've never been a person that believes in city limits lines, county lines, or state lines. It comes down to people helping people. Again, in 2008, we tried to help the Snai people over there. They held, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, that is a time when communities come together. Once again, we visit with John Hark, the Emergency Services Director for the City of Hannibal, talking about the totality of the flood of 1993, in particular July 25th, 1993, as our series on dates we remember continues.